The world outside had gone completely white, and Tessa Anderson pressed her face against the frosted window of her mountain inn, watching what might be the last car to make it up the winding road before the storm closed everything down. She never expected that sleek black SUV to change her entire life. The vehicle struggled through the snow, its headlights cutting through the blizzard as it crawled toward the Pinecrest Inn. Tessa grabbed her heavy coat and rushed outside, the wind immediately stealing her breath. She had to get whoever was driving inside before the conditions became truly dangerous. The forecasters had been warning about this storm for days, and it was finally showing its teeth. The SUV lurched to a stop in her small parking lot, and Tessa hurried over, squinting against the snow that pelted her face. The driver's door opened, and a tall man emerged, his expensive wool coat dusted white within seconds. He was handsome in that polished way that made her think of city boardrooms and cocktail parties, completely out of place against the backdrop of her rustic inn. "You need to get inside," she shouted over the howling wind. "This storm is only getting worse." He nodded, reaching back into the vehicle for a leather bag. Tessa noticed his dress shoes, completely inappropriate for the weather, and shook her head. City people never learned. They fought their way to the front door, and once inside they both stood dripping in the entrance hall, breathing hard. The warmth of the inn's main room enveloped them, and Tessa could hear the crackle of the fire she had built in the stone fireplace earlier. "Thank God you had vacancy," the man said, brushing snow from his dark hair. "I tried 3 other places, but they were all booked." Tessa studied him more carefully now that they were inside. He was probably in his early 30s, with sharp features softened slightly by genuinely kind eyes. His clothes screamed money, from the cashmere coat to the watch that probably cost more than her entire seasonal revenue. "You are lucky," she said, pulling off her gloves. "Another 20 minutes and you would not have made it at all. The road is about to become impassable." She moved behind the reception desk, shaking snow from her hair. "How long were you planning to stay?" "Just tonight," he said. "I have meetings in Denver tomorrow." Tessa looked at him seriously. "You might want to cancel those. This storm is supposed to last at least 3 days, maybe longer. Nobody is getting down this mountain until it passes and they clear the roads." His expression shifted to concern, and he pulled out his phone, frowning at the screen. "I do not have any signal." "You would not up here even on a good day," Tessa said. "I have a landline you can use, but I should tell you that sometimes the lines go down in bad weather." She handed him a registration form. "Fill this out, and I will show you to your room. You are my only guest for the foreseeable future." He took the form, and she watched as he wrote his name. Isaac Kellerman. Even his handwriting looked expensive, all confident strokes and clear letters. "Is it really just you here?" Isaac asked, glancing up. "Me and about 50 acres of mountain wilderness," Tessa said with a slight smile. "I bought this place 2 years ago. Most of the time I love the solitude. During storms like this, I question my life choices." She was joking, but only partially. Running a mountain in alone was not for the faint of heart. Isaac handed back the form, and Tessa processed his information quickly. She grabbed a key from the board behind her. "I will put you in the Aspen room. It has the best view, not that you will see much of it until this storm clears. Follow me." She led him up the wooden staircase, their footsteps echoing in the quiet building. The inn had 12 rooms, but she had stopped taking reservations once the storm warnings became serious. She had learned that lesson the hard way during her first season. The Aspen room was at the end of the hall, decorated in warm earth tones with handmade quilts on the bed and landscape paintings on the walls. Tessa had put her heart into every detail of this place, trying to create something that felt like coming home rather than just another hotel room. "This is beautiful," Isaac said, looking around with genuine appreciation. "Thank you," Tessa said, feeling a small flush of pride. "Dinner is at 6 in the dining room downstairs. Given the circumstances, I hope you like soup because that is what I had planned. I was not expecting guests." "Soup sounds perfect," Isaac said. "And I apologize for the inconvenience. I should have checked the weather more carefully before heading up here." "What brought you to the mountains?" Tessa asked, curious despite herself. "I was visiting a development site about 30 miles from here," Isaac said. "One of my companies is building a new resort complex. I wanted to see the location before we broke ground in the spring." Something about his tone made Tessa pause. "What kind of resort?" "Luxury accommodations, high-end amenities, that sort of thing," Isaac said casually. "The area is being developed as a destination for wealthy travelers looking for an exclusive mountain experience." Tessa felt her stomach drop. She knew exactly which development he was talking about. There had been community meetings about it, protests from locals who were worried about overdevelopment and the loss of the area's character. She had attended several of those meetings herself. "The Pinnacle Ridge Project," she said flatly. Isaac looked at her with surprise. "You know about it?" "Everyone around here knows about it," Tessa said, trying to keep her voice neutral. "It is controversial, to put it mildly." "It will bring jobs and tourism revenue to the area," Isaac said, his tone becoming slightly defensive. Tessa bit back the arguments she wanted to make. This was her guest, and she prided herself on hospitality, even when she disagreed with someone's business practices. "I will let you settle in. Come down whenever you are ready." She left before she could say something she would regret, closing the door firmly behind her. Of course, the handsome stranger had to be exactly the kind of person who treated mountains like commodities to be packaged and sold. She made her way back downstairs, trying to shake off her irritation. In the kitchen, she focused on preparing dinner. The soup was already simmering, a hearty vegetable and bean mixture that would stick to the ribs. She made fresh bread rolls and put together a simple salad from the greenhouse vegetables she grew in the small structure behind the inn. Cooking always calmed her down, the familiar rhythms of chopping and stirring requiring just enough attention to quiet her racing thoughts. At exactly 6, Isaac appeared in the dining room doorway. He had changed into jeans and a thick sweater, looking more relaxed than he had in his business attire. Tessa noticed he had also found different shoes, sensible boots that suggested he had at least packed for the possibility of mountain weather. "Something smells amazing," he said. "Just soup and bread," Tessa said, carrying bowls to the table. She had set 2 places, figuring there was no point in them eating separately when they were the only 2 people in the building. They sat down, and for a few minutes they ate in companionable silence. The storm raged outside, wind rattling the windows, but inside the dining room felt warm and safe. "This is incredible," Isaac said finally. "Did you make everything from scratch?" "I like to cook," Tessa said. "It was one of the reasons I wanted to run an inn. I worked in marketing for 10 years, sitting in an office, eating takeout at my desk. I wanted to do something real with my hands." "I can understand that," Isaac said. "Though I have to admit, I have not made anything from scratch in years. I am more of a restaurant and delivery person." "Let me guess," Tessa said, unable to resist a slight edge to her tone. "You have assistants who handle all of that for you." Isaac looked at her steadily. "I do, actually. I run 3 companies, and my time is usually spent on strategic planning, investor relations, and making sure hundreds of employees have stable jobs. I do not have time to cook." Tessa felt chastised, even though he had not said it harshly. "I am sorry. That was judgmental of me." "You do not approve of the Pinnacle Ridge project," Isaac said. It was not a question. I think there are better ways to develop the mountains that do not involve pricing out locals and changing the character of communities that have existed for generations, Tessa said honestly. But you are right that I do not know all the details. I only know what I have heard at community meetings. What have you heard? Isaac asked. Tessa hesitated, then decided to be direct. That the resort will cater exclusively to the ultra-wealthy, that it will drive up property values to the point where people who have lived here their whole lives will not be able to afford to stay, and that it will bring in a wave of development that will destroy what makes this area special. Isaac was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. Those are valid concerns. I will not pretend they are not. He took a drink of water. The project includes affordable housing requirements for local workers, environmental protections, and investments in community infrastructure. But I know promises from developers do not mean much until they are actually implemented. Have you built other resorts? Tessa asked. 2 in Colorado, 1 in Montana, and 1 in Wyoming, Isaac said. I got into development almost by accident. I made my first fortune in manufacturing, buying struggling companies and turning them around. Then I bought a small ski resort that was about to go bankrupt, fixed it up, and discovered I enjoyed that work more than anything else I had done. Despite herself, Tessa was curious. What do you enjoy about it? Creating spaces where people can experience something beautiful, Isaac said. I know that sounds pretentious, but it is true. Most people who come to my resorts work hard all year and save up for one special trip. I want that trip to be memorable in the best possible way. Tessa could hear the genuine passion in his voice, and it complicated her simple narrative of him as just another greedy developer. But why does it have to be exclusive? Why not make it accessible to everyone? The luxury market funds the infrastructure that benefits the whole community, Isaac explained. The roads we improve, the emergency services we support, the jobs we create. Those things help everyone, not just our guests. He paused. Though I will admit I also like beautiful things. I like creating spaces that feel special. I can understand that, Tessa said, looking around her dining room. I wanted the Pinecrest to feel special too, just in a different way. They finished dinner, the conversation shifting to lighter topics. Isaac asked about her background, and Tessa found herself telling him about her years in corporate marketing. The slow realization that she was spending her life making rich people richer without any real satisfaction, and her impulsive decision to buy the inn with her savings and a terrifying amount of debt. Do you regret it? Isaac asked. Not for a second, Tessa said. Even when things are hard, even when I am worried about money or fixing broken pipes or dealing with difficult guests, I am building something that is mine, and that matters. Isaac looked at her with an expression she could not quite read. That is brave. Most people never take that leap. Or most people are smarter than me, Tessa said with a laugh. They cleaned up together, falling into an easy rhythm of washing and drying dishes. Outside, the storm showed no signs of letting up. The wind howled like a living thing, and snow piled higher against the windows. I should probably try to make some calls, Isaac said reluctantly. Let people know I am not going to make it to Denver. Tessa showed him to the phone in her small office, and he spent the next 20 minutes canceling meetings and rescheduling appointments. She tried not to eavesdrop, but she could hear the frustration in his voice as he explained the situation again and again. When he finally emerged, he looked tired. Everything sorted? Tessa asked. As sorted as it can be, Isaac said. My assistant is not thrilled, but she will handle it. The Denver meetings were important, but they can wait a few days. What kind of business are you meeting about? Tessa asked. Expansion plans for one of my manufacturing companies, Isaac said. We make specialized equipment for renewable energy installations. It is not glamorous, but it is good work, and it is growing fast. Tessa felt another piece of her simple judgment of him shift. That is actually pretty cool. You sound surprised, Isaac said, amused. I am, a little, Tessa admitted. I had you pegged as someone who just moved money around without actually making anything real. I get that a lot, Isaac said. The reality is messier and more interesting than people think. But I will admit, the luxury resort development is the part of my business that gets the most attention, for better or worse. They settled in the main room, where the fire still crackled welcomingly. Tessa added another log and poked at the embers. The storm had knocked out the power to some of the outbuildings, but the inn itself had a backup generator and was doing fine for now. What do you do for fun up here? Isaac asked, sprawling in one of the comfortable armchairs. Read, mostly, Tessa said. I also paint a little, though I am not very good, and I hike when the weather allows. The mountains are different every season, every day really. I never get tired of them. Do you get lonely? Isaac asked. It was a surprisingly personal question, but Tessa found she did not mind answering. Sometimes. But I was lonely in the city too, surrounded by millions of people. At least here my loneliness has a good view. Isaac laughed, a real laugh that lit up his face. That is a good way to look at it. They talked late into the night, the conversation ranging from books to travel to childhood memories. Tessa learned that Isaac had grown up in a working-class neighborhood in Chicago, that his father had been a factory worker who died when Isaac was 19, and that his mother still lived in the same small house where he had grown up. I offered to buy her a bigger place, something nicer, Isaac said, but she refused. She said that house held all her memories of my father and she was not leaving. That is sweet, Tessa said. It drives me crazy, Isaac admitted. The roof leaks, the furnace is ancient, and the neighborhood is not what it used to be, but she is stubborn. I wonder where you get it from, Tessa said teasingly. Isaac grinned. Fair point. When Tessa finally looked at the clock, she was shocked to see it was past midnight. I should let you get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a long day of being trapped inside with nothing to do. I have had worse days, Isaac said, standing up. Thank you for the company, Tessa, and for the excellent food. You are welcome, Tessa said. Sleep well. She watched him climb the stairs, then spent a few minutes banking the fire and making sure everything was secure for the night. The storm was supposed to peak overnight, and she wanted to be ready for anything. In her own room on the main floor, Tessa lay awake for a long time, listening to the wind and thinking about Isaac Kellerman. He was not what she had expected. He was thoughtful and funny and surprisingly easy to talk to. She reminded herself not to read too much into a pleasant evening. He was a guest, nothing more, and in a few days he would be gone. But as she finally drifted off to sleep, she could not help thinking about the way he had looked at her across the dinner table, like she was saying something worth hearing. The next morning, Tessa woke to an eerie silence. The wind had stopped, and when she looked outside, the world was buried under several feet of fresh snow. Drifts reached halfway up the first-floor windows, and the trees bent under the weight of white. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. She made her way to the kitchen and started coffee, then checked the generator and the phone line. Both were still working, which was a small miracle. She turned on the radio for weather updates and learned that the storm had been even worse than predicted. Roads throughout the region were closed, and several towns were without power. Isaac appeared in the kitchen doorway as she was scrambling eggs. His hair was still damp from a shower, and he looked impossibly put together for someone who had just woken up. "Good morning," Tessa said. "Coffee is ready and breakfast will be done in a few minutes." "You are a lifesaver," Isaac said, pouring himself a cup. I just checked my phone. Still no signal, and I have about 30 missed calls from last night before I lost service completely. Welcome to mountain living, Tessa said. The modern world feels very far away up here. They ate breakfast together, and Tessa explained the situation. We are completely snowed in. The road will not be cleared until the storm system moves out and the county crews can get to work. That probably means at least 2 more days, maybe 3. I have never been snowed in before, Isaac admitted. Is there anything I should be worried about? We have plenty of food, the generator is working, and the fireplace provides backup heat if we need it, Tessa said. The biggest danger is boredom. I think I can handle that, Isaac said. After breakfast, Tessa bundled up and went outside to clear paths and check on the outbuildings. Isaac insisted on helping, and she found him a spare coat and gloves. They worked together for over an hour, shoveling snow and making sure everything was secure. Tessa watched Isaac as he worked, impressed by his willingness to get his hands dirty. He attacked the shoveling with the same focused intensity she had seen when he was making phone calls, treating it like a problem to be solved rather than a chore to be endured. You are pretty good at this, she said, taking a break to catch her breath. I am good at most things, Isaac said with a grin. Confidence is an essential business skill. It is also an essential way to annoy people, Tessa shot back. Isaac laughed. Also true. They finished their work and went back inside, both of them red-cheeked and exhilarated from the cold. Tessa made hot chocolate, and they stood in the kitchen drinking it, warming their hands on the mugs. Thank you for letting me help, Isaac said. I would have gone crazy just sitting around. I could tell you are not good at sitting still, Tessa said. Is it that obvious? Isaac asked. You have an energy about you, Tessa said, like you are always thinking 3 steps ahead. Hazard of the job, Isaac said. Sometimes I wish I could turn my brain off. Is that why you came up to the mountains? Tessa asked. To get away, partly, Isaac admitted. Though I am not very good at the getting away part, I always end up working even when I am supposed to be relaxing. Tessa understood that instinct. She had been the same way in her corporate job, always checking email, always available. The mountains teach you to slow down eventually. You do not have a choice when the snow is this deep. They spent the rest of the morning in the main room, Tessa working on some paperwork, while Isaac read a book he had found on her shelves. It was a comfortable silence, the kind that usually only existed between people who had known each other for much longer. Around noon, Tessa made sandwiches and they ate lunch while playing cards. Isaac was competitive in a way that made her laugh, groaning dramatically when he lost and celebrating his wins with exaggerated triumph. You are ridiculous, Tessa said, shaking her head as he did a victory dance after beating her at gin rummy. I am a winner, Isaac corrected. There is a difference. How did you get so competitive? Tessa asked. Growing up with nothing, Isaac said, his tone becoming more serious. When you start at the bottom, you learn to fight for everything. I put myself through college working 3 jobs, started my first business with $5,000 I saved from working construction, and spent years barely sleeping because I was so afraid of losing everything. He paused. Old habits die hard. Tessa felt a surge of respect for him. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was, Isaac said simply, but it also taught me what I was capable of. I do not think I would trade those years as hard as they were. Is that why you work so much now? Tessa asked gently. Because you are afraid of going back to having nothing. Isaac looked at her with surprise as if no one had ever asked him that before. Maybe. I have never really thought about it that way. You do not have to answer, Tessa said quickly. I am being nosy. No, it is a fair question, Isaac said. And you might be right. Success does not feel secure when you have seen how quickly it can all disappear. They were quiet for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling between them. Then Isaac shook his head and smiled. This got heavy. Want to play another round? I promise to be less obnoxious when I win. I do not believe you, Tessa said, but she shuffled the cards anyway. The afternoon passed in a pleasant blur of games and conversation. Tessa found herself relaxing in a way she had not in months. Running the inn was rewarding, but it was also constant work, and she rarely had time to just enjoy someone's company without worrying about what needed to be done next. As evening approached, she started preparing dinner. Isaac joined her in the kitchen, chopping vegetables while she prepared chicken to roast. "You are pretty handy with a knife," Tessa observed. "I worked in a restaurant kitchen during college," Isaac said. "The chef used to yell at me constantly, but I learned a lot." "I can teach you how to make bread if you want," Tessa offered. "It is easier than people think." Isaac's face lit up. "Really? I have always wanted to learn." Tessa walked him through the process, showing him how to mix the dough, knead it properly, and shape the loaves. Isaac followed her instructions carefully, his brow furrowed in concentration. She found herself standing closer than necessary, their shoulders brushing as she demonstrated techniques. "Like this?" Isaac asked, his hands working the dough. "Perfect," Tessa said, very aware of his proximity. He smelled good, like pine and clean soap. She stepped back quickly, reminding herself to keep things professional. While the bread rose and the chicken cooked, they set the table together. Isaac found candles in the sideboard and lit them, and Tessa did not protest, even though it made the meal feel more intimate than it should. Dinner was delicious, the chicken perfectly seasoned and the bread warm from the oven. Isaac looked absurdly proud of his baking accomplishment, taking a picture of his bread with his phone even though he could not send it to anyone. "I am going to text this to my mother when I get signal back," he said. "She will not believe I made bread." "Make sure you tell her you had an excellent teacher," Tessa said. "The best," Isaac agreed, and the way he looked at her made her heart beat faster. After dinner, they returned to the main room. The storm had picked up again, snow falling heavily outside the windows. Tessa added wood to the fire and settled into her favorite chair. Isaac sat across from her, and for a while they just watched the flames dance. "Can I ask you something?" Isaac said finally. "Sure," Tessa said. "Why did you really leave marketing?" Isaac asked. "It could not have been just the takeout food." Tessa smiled at his tone. "No, that was just part of it. The truth is, I was successful at my job. I was good at convincing people to buy things they did not need, at crafting messages that played on insecurities and desires. And the more successful I became, the more empty I felt." "What changed?" Isaac asked. "My best friend died," Tessa said quietly. "She was 32, perfectly healthy, and then one day she had an aneurysm and was just gone. I went to her funeral and looked around at all these people whose lives she had touched, and I realized that nobody was going to remember me for the advertising campaigns I had created. I wanted to do something that mattered." Isaac's expression was gentle. "I am sorry about your friend." "Thank you," Tessa said. "It was 3 years ago, but I still think about her all the time. She would have loved this place. She always said I was meant for something bigger than a cubicle." "She was right," Isaac said. They talked into the night again, sharing stories and dreams and fears. Tessa learned that Isaac wanted to have children someday, but was not sure he would ever have time for a family. She told him about her own uncertainties, the fear that she had given up the possibility of a traditional life for a dream that might not sustain her. "Do you ever regret not having a partner?" Isaac asked. "Someone to share all this with, all the time," Tessa admitted. "I dated someone when I first moved here, another local business owner, But he wanted me to be less focused on the inn, and I was not willing to compromise on that. We ended it after about 6 months. He sounds like an idiot, Isaac said bluntly. Tessa laughed. He was not an idiot, we just wanted different things. Still, Isaac insisted. Anyone who asks you to be less than what you are is not worth your time. Is that why you are single? Tessa asked. Because you refuse to compromise. I am single because I am married to my work, Isaac said. And because most people I date are either intimidated by my success or only interested in my money. It gets old. That sounds lonely, Tessa said softly. It is, Isaac admitted. But I keep telling myself I will figure it out eventually. Find someone who sees me rather than the bank account. Their eyes met across the firelight, and Tessa felt something shift between them. The attraction had been there from the beginning, she realized, hiding under their conversations and shared tasks. But now it was impossible to ignore. Isaac stood up abruptly. I should get some sleep. Early morning tomorrow, even if we are not going anywhere. Right, Tessa said, trying to ignore the disappointment she felt. Good night. Good night, Tessa, Isaac said, and the way he said her name made her shiver. After he left, Tessa sat by the fire for a long time trying to sort out her feelings. She barely knew this man. He was a guest at her inn, someone who would be gone as soon as the roads cleared. It would be stupid to let herself feel anything for him. But as she finally made her way to bed, she could not stop thinking about the way he had looked at her, or the way she had felt when he was near. The third day dawned clear and bright, the storm finally blown out. Tessa woke early and checked the weather reports. The roads were still closed, but crews were working on clearing them. They would probably be open by tomorrow, maybe even later tonight if things went well. She felt a strange sadness at the thought. Part of her wanted Isaac to leave so she could get back to normal, back to her comfortable solitude. But a bigger part of her wanted him to stay, wanted more time to explore whatever was developing between them. Isaac came down for breakfast looking troubled. I finally got a signal, he said. Everything has been chaos while I have been out of contact. My team is freaking out. Investors are nervous about the delayed Denver meetings, and I have about 100 decisions that apparently only I can make. That sounds stressful, Tessa said. It is, Isaac agreed, but it is also my life. This is what I signed up for. They ate breakfast quickly, and then Isaac disappeared into her office with the landline. Tessa could hear him making call after call, his voice taking on that sharp, authoritative tone she had not heard since he arrived. It was a reminder that the relaxed, playful person she had gotten to know over the past 2 days was only one version of Isaac Kellerman. The businessman, the billionaire, that person was just as real. Tessa tried to keep herself busy with chores, but she found herself distracted. She cleaned rooms that were already clean, reorganized the pantry, and generally accomplished nothing useful. When Isaac finally emerged from the office several hours later, he looked exhausted. Everything okay? Tessa asked. Define okay, Isaac said, rubbing his eyes. I managed to put out most of the fires, but I really need to get back to civilization. The Denver meetings are rescheduled for tomorrow afternoon, and I have a board meeting the day after that. The roads might be open tonight, Tessa said, trying to sound neutral. That is what I heard, Isaac said. He looked at her for a long moment. Tessa, I know this is probably crazy, but these past few days have been some of the best I have had in years. I do not want to just leave and never see you again. Tessa's heart hammered in her chest. What are you saying? I am saying I would like to see you again, Isaac said. If you want that too. I do, Tessa said before she could overthink it. But I do not know how that would work. Your life is obviously very different from mine. We can figure it out, Isaac said. If we want to. Do you want to? Tessa asked. Instead of answering, Isaac crossed the room and kissed her. It was gentle at first, questioning, and then deeper as Tessa kissed him back. She felt like she was falling and flying at the same time, her whole body alive with sensation. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I want to," Isaac said. "Very much." Tessa laughed, a little giddy. "Okay then, we will figure it out." They spent the rest of the day together, the air between them charged with new possibility. Isaac helped Tessa with her afternoon chores, and they stole kisses in the hallway, in the kitchen, by the fire. It felt reckless and wonderful and slightly terrifying. As evening approached, Isaac's phone started getting more signal. He made a few more calls, and Tessa heard him confirming that he would be back in Denver by tomorrow morning. "The roads are opening up," he said when he found her in the kitchen. "I should probably leave tonight, get a head start." "Tonight," Tessa said, her heart sinking. "It will still be dangerous driving." "I have good tires and years of experience driving in snow," Isaac said. "I will be fine." Tessa wanted to argue, to find reasons for him to stay longer, but she knew he was right. His responsibilities were waiting, and he had already been away longer than he had planned. "Okay," she said. "Let me pack you some food for the drive." She put together sandwiches and thermoses of coffee, keeping her hands busy so she did not have to think about how much she did not want him to go. Isaac went upstairs to pack his bag, and Tessa stood in the kitchen, trying not to cry. When he came back down, bag in hand, Tessa walked him to the door. The sun was setting, painting the snow orange and pink. It would have been beautiful if she had been able to appreciate it. "I will call you as soon as I am back in Denver," Isaac said. "And I will come back to visit as soon as I can. Maybe next weekend." "That would be nice," Tessa said, "if you can spare the time." "I will make the time," Isaac promised. He cupped her face in his hands. "These 3 days were not enough, Tessa, not even close." He kissed her again, long and sweet, and then he was gone, his SUV crunching through the snow and disappearing down the mountain road. Tessa stood in the doorway until she could not see his taillights anymore, then went back inside. The inn felt too big and too quiet without him. She cleaned up from dinner mechanically, her thoughts already racing ahead to next weekend, to the next time she would see him. She was falling for him. Maybe she had already fallen, and she had no idea if they could actually make this work, with their completely different lives and priorities. But as she lay in bed that night, she thought about what Isaac had said. 3 days were not enough. She wanted more time, more conversations, more of everything, and maybe that was enough to start with. The next few days passed in a blur of normal inactivities. Tessa had guests checking in and out, meals to prepare, and 1,000 small tasks that kept her occupied. But Isaac was always there in the back of her mind. He called every night like he had promised, usually late after his meetings were done. They talked about their days, made each other laugh, and carefully avoided discussing the elephant in the room, which was how exactly they were going to make a relationship work. On Friday afternoon, Isaac called earlier than usual. "I am leaving Denver now," he said. "I should be there by dinner time." "You are really coming?" Tessa asked, unable to keep the excitement out of her voice. "I told you I would," Isaac said. "I have been thinking about your cooking all week." "Just my cooking," Tessa teased. "Well, the cook is pretty appealing too," Isaac said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Tessa spent the afternoon in a frenzy of preparation. She made Isaac's favorite soup from their first night together, baked fresh bread, and even changed her clothes twice before deciding on jeans and a soft blue sweater. When his SUV pulled up outside, she forced herself to wait rather than running out to meet him. But as soon as he walked through the door, all her restraint disappeared. She threw herself into his arms and he caught her, spinning her around. "I missed you," Isaac said into her hair. "I missed you too," Tessa admitted, That weekend was like a perfect dream. They cooked together, hiked through the snowy woods, and spent long evenings by the fire. Isaac had blocked out the whole weekend, no phone calls or business emergencies. It was just the two of them, learning each other. "I could get used to this," Isaac said on Sunday morning as they ate breakfast in bed. Tessa had closed the inn to guests for the weekend, wanting privacy for Isaac's visit. "Me too," Tessa said. "But I know this is not reality. Your real life is meetings and phone calls and running companies." "What if I changed that?" Isaac asked quietly. Tessa looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I have been thinking about this all week," Isaac said. "About what you said about doing work that matters. I have been so focused on building and acquiring and growing that I have forgotten to ask myself why I am doing it all." "Isaac, you do not need to change your whole life because of me," Tessa said carefully. "I am not doing it because of you," Isaac said. "I am doing it because these past 2 weeks have shown me what I have been missing. I have spent years telling myself that I will slow down eventually, that I will find balance someday. But someday never comes unless you make it happen." "What are you going to do?" Tessa asked. "I am going to delegate more," Isaac said. "Hire executives I trust to run the day-to-day operations of my companies. I built these businesses to be successful without me hovering over every decision. It is time to let them prove it." "And the Pinnacle Ridge project?" Tessa asked. Isaac was quiet for a moment. "I have been thinking about that too. Would you be willing to give me some feedback? Help me make it something that actually benefits the community rather than just my bottom line." "You want my input?" Tessa said, surprised. "I trust your judgment," Isaac said simply. "And I think you are right that there are better ways to develop the mountains. I just need help figuring out what that looks like." Tessa felt something warm bloom in her chest. "I would like that. As long as you promise to actually listen and not just pretend to consider my opinions." "I promise," Isaac said, "though I reserve the right to argue with you when I think you are wrong." "I would expect nothing less," Tessa said with a laugh. They spent the rest of the morning talking through ideas for the Pinnacle Ridge project. Tessa suggested partnering with local businesses instead of competing with them, creating more accessible price points alongside the luxury accommodations, and implementing stronger environmental protections. Isaac listened carefully, taking notes on his phone and asking thoughtful questions. "This is going to be a better project because of you," Isaac said finally. "I can already see it." "I hope so," Tessa said. "I want to believe that development and preservation can coexist." "They can," Isaac said confidently. "We will prove it." That evening, as they prepared Isaac's last dinner before he had to drive back to Denver, Tessa felt a bittersweet ache. The weekend had been wonderful, but it had also highlighted how difficult this was going to be. Seeing each other only on weekends, trying to build something real across the distance, it would take work. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac asked, noticing her quietness. "How hard this is going to be," Tessa admitted. "The long distance, the different schedules. I want this to work, but I am scared." Isaac set down the knife he had been using to chop vegetables and turned to face her. "I am scared too, but I think you are worth being scared for." "You barely know me," Tessa said. "What if you get tired of making the drive every weekend? What if your work picks up and you do not have time anymore?" "Then we will figure something else out," Isaac said. "Tessa, I have spent my entire adult life solving problems, building businesses, managing crises, making impossible things happen. If I can do all that, I can figure out how to make this relationship work." "It is not the same thing," Tessa said. "No, it is not," Isaac agreed. "It is more important." They finished making dinner in silence, but it was a comfortable silence now. After they ate, Isaac pulled Tessa onto the couch and wrapped his arms around her. I know I come with complications, he said quietly. The money, the businesses, the public attention sometimes. And I know your life is here in the mountains, running your inn. But I think what we have is worth fighting for. I think so too, Tessa said, snuggling closer. I just do not want either of us to have to give up who we are. We would not, Isaac promised. We will find a way to make both our lives fit together. Maybe I spend weekends here. Maybe you come to Denver sometimes. Maybe I move some of my operations closer to the mountains so I can be here more often. You would do that? Tessa asked, surprised. I can work from anywhere, Isaac said. The question is whether you want me around that much. Tessa laughed. I think I could tolerate you. The next several weeks fell into a pattern. Isaac came to the inn every weekend, arriving Friday evening and leaving Sunday night. They cooked together, explored the mountains, and slowly built something that felt real and lasting. True to his word, Isaac started delegating more of his responsibilities. He hired a new CEO for his manufacturing company, promoted trusted executives in his other businesses, and stepped back from the day-to-day operations. It was clearly hard for him, but he did it anyway. The Pinnacle Ridge project evolved too. Isaac brought Tessa to meetings with his architects and planners, and her input started shaping the development in meaningful ways. Local contractors were brought in for the construction. Partnership agreements were made with existing businesses, and the project's scope was modified to include more community amenities and affordable units. You are doing a good thing here, Tessa told him one night as they reviewed the latest plans. We are doing a good thing, Isaac corrected. I could not have gotten here without you. As winter turned to spring, their relationship deepened. Tessa learned Isaac's habits and quirks, the way he rubbed his eyes when he was tired, and how he talked with his hands when he was excited about something. Isaac learned that Tessa sang in the kitchen when she thought no one was listening, and that she always checked on the fire twice before going to bed. They had their first real fight in March, when Isaac had to cancel a weekend visit because of an emergency board meeting. Tessa knew she was being unreasonable, but she could not help feeling like his business would always come first. This is exactly what I was afraid of, she said when Isaac called to explain. You said you would be here and now you are not. I know, and I am sorry, Isaac said. But this is a genuine emergency. One of my board members is trying to engineer a hostile takeover, and I need to be there to stop it. There is always going to be something, Tessa said. Always another crisis, another emergency. When does our relationship get to be the priority? That is not fair, Isaac said, his voice hardening. I have completely restructured my life to make this work. I drive 3 hours each way every weekend. I have given up control of companies I built from nothing. What more do you want from me? Tessa felt tears prick her eyes. I want to feel like I matter as much as your businesses do. There was a long silence on the line. Then Isaac said, more gently, You matter more. That is why I am trying so hard to find balance. But I cannot just walk away from my responsibilities, Tessa. These companies employ hundreds of people. What I do affects their livelihoods. I know, Tessa said miserably. I am being selfish. You are being human, Isaac said. And you are right that I still have work to do on setting boundaries, but I need you to trust that I am trying. I do trust you, Tessa said. I am sorry for freaking out. I am sorry I have to cancel, Isaac said. I will make it up to you, I promise. They talked for another hour, working through their feelings and fears. By the end of the call, Tessa felt better, though she still missed him terribly. Isaac did make it up to her, surprising her the following Wednesday by showing up at the inn with flowers, and an entire day cleared for just the two of them. How did you manage this? Tessa asked, delighted. I told my team that I was unavailable except for genuine emergencies, Isaac said. And I define genuine emergency very narrowly. They will figure it out. They spent the day hiking to a waterfall Tessa had wanted to show Isaac. The spring runoff made the falls spectacular, water thundering down in a curtain of white foam. They had a picnic lunch on the rocks, surrounded by wildflowers and sunshine. "I love it here," Isaac said, lying back on the sun-warmed stone. "I love the quiet, the space to think. I understand why you left the city." "Does that mean you are going to buy a mountain property and become my neighbor?" Tessa teased. "Maybe," Isaac said, and something in his tone made Tessa look at him more closely. "Isaac, what are you thinking?" she asked. He sat up, suddenly serious. "I have been thinking about what I want my life to look like long-term, and I keep coming back to this. You, the mountains, building something meaningful instead of just profitable." "That is a big change," Tessa said carefully. "I know," Isaac said. "And I am not saying I want to completely walk away from business, but I think I am ready to make the mountains my home base instead of Denver, if you would want that." Tessa's heart was racing. "Are you asking what I think you are asking?" "I am asking if you would want me to move here," Isaac said. "To be close to you, to really build a life together instead of just seeing each other on weekends." "Yes," Tessa said immediately. "Yes, I want that, but only if it is what you really want too. I do not want you to resent me for giving up your city life." "I would not be giving it up," Isaac said. "I would be choosing something better. I can still travel when I need to, still run my companies. But this would be home. You would be home." Tessa kissed him, tasting happiness and possibility. "I love you," she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "I love you too," Isaac said, pulling her close. "I think I have loved you since that first night when you let me into your inn and fed me soup." "That was less than 3 months ago," Tessa said, laughing through happy tears. "Best 3 months of my life," Isaac said. They made their way back to the inn as the sun was setting, hand in hand, talking excitedly about the future. Isaac would need to find a property, probably build a house since there was not much available for sale in the area. Tessa could help him navigate the local real estate market and connect him with good contractors. "I want something sustainable," Isaac said. "Solar panels, geothermal heating, the whole environmental package." "Look at you becoming a mountain man," Tessa teased. "I have a good teacher," Isaac said, squeezing her hand. Over the next few months, Isaac made the move official. He bought a beautiful piece of land about 5 miles from Tessa's inn, with views of the valley and enough space for privacy. He hired a local architect who specialized in environmentally responsible design, and together, they created plans for a house that would be comfortable but not ostentatious. "I do not need a mansion," Isaac told the architect. "I need a home." Construction began in June, and Isaac spent the summer splitting his time between a rental in town and Tessa's inn. He was there for the summer rush, helping Tessa manage the increased guest load and learning the ins and outs of inn management. "You are actually pretty good at this," Tessa said one morning after Isaac had charmed a difficult guest into being reasonable about a booking issue. "I have my moments," Isaac said with a grin. The Pinnacle Ridge project broke ground in July, with a ceremony that included local officials, community members, and even some of the people who had originally protested the development. Tessa stood next to Isaac as he gave a speech about responsible development and partnership with the community. "None of this would have been possible without some hard truths from people who care about these mountains," Isaac said, looking directly at Tessa. "I am grateful for their willingness to challenge me and help me build something better." Afterward, several community members came up to thank Tessa for her influence on the project. "You turned a potential disaster into something we can all be proud of," one longtime local said. Tessa felt proud but also a little overwhelmed. She had never wanted to be in the spotlight, but being with Isaac meant accepting a certain amount of public attention. "You okay?" Isaac asked, finding her in a quiet corner. "I think so," Tessa said. "It is just a lot." "I know," Isaac said. "And if it is too much, we can pull back. I can be less public about things." "No," Tessa said firmly. "I just need to get used to it. Besides, if being in the spotlight means projects like this turn out better, it is worth it." Isaac's house was finished in October, and Tessa helped him move in. It was beautiful, all exposed wood and huge windows that framed mountain views. There was a chef's kitchen that made Tessa almost jealous, and a library with built-in shelves that Isaac immediately started filling with books. "What do you think?" Isaac asked as they stood in the living room surrounded by unpacked boxes. "I think it is perfect," Tessa said honestly. "It feels like you. It feels like us," Isaac corrected. "I designed it with both of us in mind. Look." He led her to a wing of the house she had not explored yet. There was a studio space with perfect north light set up for painting. "For you," Isaac said, "since you mentioned wanting to paint more." Tessa felt tears welling up. "Isaac, this is too much." "It is not even close to enough," Isaac said. "I want you to think of this house as yours too. I want you here whenever you can be." "I have the inn to run," Tessa said. "I know," Isaac said, "and I would never ask you to give that up, but maybe sometimes you could close for a night, come stay here with me. And maybe eventually, when you are ready, we could figure out a way to be together more permanently." "Are you proposing?" Tessa asked, her heart hammering. "Not yet," Isaac said with a smile. "When I propose, you will know it. I am just saying that I am thinking long-term, forever term." "I like the sound of that," Tessa said. They spent that first night in Isaac's new house curled up on the couch, eating pizza straight from the box and talking about their plans. Isaac wanted to start a foundation focused on sustainable mountain development. Tessa was thinking about expanding the inn, maybe adding a few more rooms or a bigger dining space. "We could partner on things," Isaac suggested. "Your inn could be a model for sustainable hospitality. I could help fund improvements in exchange for using it as a showcase." "That feels like mixing business with our relationship," Tessa said hesitantly. "Everything in our lives is already mixed together," Isaac pointed out. "We cannot separate who we are from what we do, but we can make sure we are building things that reflect our values." Tessa thought about that. "Okay, but I want everything in writing. Contracts, clear expectations, all of it. I do not want money to ever become an issue between us." "Agreed," Isaac said. "I will have my lawyers draw up a proposal and you can have your own lawyer review it. Everything above board." True to his word, Isaac had formal partnership documents prepared. Tessa hired a lawyer to review them, and they spent several evenings negotiating terms that felt fair to both of them. It was oddly romantic, building a business relationship alongside their personal one, making sure they were protecting each other as much as themselves. The winter passed in a haze of happiness. Isaac and Tessa fell into a comfortable routine, spending several nights a week together either at the inn or at his house. They hosted Thanksgiving at Isaac's place, inviting a mix of local friends and Isaac's mother, who flew in from Chicago. "You are good for my son," Isaac's mother told Tessa while they were doing dishes. "I have never seen him this relaxed." "He is good for me too," Tessa said. "I can tell," Isaac's mother said with a knowing smile. "When is he going to make an honest woman of you?" "Mom," Isaac said, appearing in the doorway. "Stop interrogating her." "I am not interrogating, I am getting to know her," his mother said innocently. "There is a difference." Christmas came, and Isaac surprised Tessa with a trip to Chicago to meet more of his family. It was loud and chaotic and wonderful, so different from Tessa's own small family. She felt welcomed immediately, folded into the warmth of people who clearly loved Isaac and were happy to see him happy. "They adore you," Isaac said on the plane ride home. "My aunt already asked when we are getting married." "What did you tell her?" Tessa asked. "That it is none of her business," Isaac said, "but also that I am working on it." Tessa's heart skipped. "Are you?" "Maybe," Isaac said mysteriously. The proposal came in February, almost exactly a year after Isaac had first been stranded at Tessa's inn. He had planned an elaborate surprise, but a winter storm thwarted his plans, stranding them at the inn, just the two of them. "This feels familiar," Tessa said as they watched snow pile up outside. "I am starting to think storms are our thing," Isaac said. They made dinner together, the same soup and bread from that first night. After they ate, Isaac led Tessa to the main room where a fire was already blazing. "I had a whole elaborate plan," Isaac said. "A fancy restaurant in Denver, reservations at your favorite hotel, the works. But I think this is better. Just us, where it all started." He got down on one knee, pulling out a ring that caught the firelight. "Tessa Anderson, you changed my life the night you opened your door to a stranger in a storm. You taught me what matters, what home feels like, and what love really means. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Tessa said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, of course, yes." Isaac slid the ring onto her finger, and Tessa noticed it was not a typical diamond. Instead, it was a beautiful blue-green stone that reminded her of mountain lakes. "It is an aquamarine," Isaac explained. "I wanted something that felt like where we are, the mountains we love. If you want a diamond instead, we can exchange it." "It is perfect," Tessa said. "You are perfect. I love you so much." They got married in June, a small ceremony at Isaac's house with just close friends and family. Tessa wore a simple dress and wildflowers in her hair. Isaac wore a suit but no tie, and he cried when he saw her walking toward him. "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen," he said. "You are not so bad yourself," Tessa said, making him laugh. They wrote their own vows. Tessa promised to always challenge Isaac, to keep him grounded, and to build a life of meaning together. Isaac promised to always make time for what mattered, to support Tessa's dreams as fiercely as his own, and to never stop working to be worthy of her love. "I cannot promise we will not have storms," Isaac said, "but I can promise I will always weather them with you." "That is all I need," Tessa said. They honeymooned by traveling through Montana and Wyoming, visiting Isaac's other resort properties, and using the trip as inspiration for making those properties more sustainable and community-focused, like the Pinnacle Ridge project. "We should make this our mission," Tessa said as they hiked through Yellowstone, "helping developers do better, showing them how to build things that enhance rather than destroy." "I like that idea," Isaac said. "We could start a consulting firm, travel to beautiful places, make the world a little better. And still have time for the inn and your house and all the things we love," Tessa added. "All of it," Isaac agreed. "We do not have to choose. We can build a life that includes everything that matters." When they returned home, they started putting that vision into action. They hired a manager for the Pinecrest Inn, someone Tessa trusted to maintain her standards while giving her more freedom. Isaac continued delegating his business responsibilities, focusing his energy on the foundation and the consulting work he and Tessa were building together. The Pinnacle Ridge Resort opened in the fall, and it was everything they had hoped for. It brought jobs and revenue to the community while respecting the environment and local character. Other developers started reaching out, wanting to know how they could replicate that success. "We are onto something," Isaac said after a particularly successful consulting project in Utah. "I think we are changing things," Tessa agreed. "One mountain at a time." A year after their wedding, Tessa told Isaac she was pregnant. They were sitting on the deck of his house, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple. "Really?" Isaac said, his face lighting up with joy. "We are going to have a baby. We are going to have a baby," Tessa confirmed, laughing as Isaac picked her up and spun her around. "Careful," she said. "I am fragile now." "You are the strongest person I know," Isaac said, setting her down gently, "but I will be careful anyway." Their daughter was born the following spring, a tiny, perfect creature with Isaac's dark hair and Tessa's stubborn chin. They named her Hannah. "She is going to be trouble," Tessa said, cradling the sleeping baby. "She is going to be amazing," Isaac said, "just like her mother." Life settled into a new rhythm after Hannah was born. Tessa cut back on travel, focusing on the inn and being home with the baby. Isaac did the same, turning down projects that would take him away for too long. They figured out how to balance work and family, how to maintain their partnership in business and in life. On Hannah's first birthday, they threw a party at the inn. Friends and family filled the rooms, and the celebration spilled out onto the lawn. Tessa stood on the porch, watching Isaac play with Hannah in the grass, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "Quite a year," her friend Sarah said, coming to stand beside her. "Quite a life," Tessa corrected. "I never imagined any of this when I bought the inn. Do you miss the simplicity?" Sarah asked. Before everything got so complicated, Tessa thought about it. "No, it was simpler, but it was also lonelier. I thought I wanted solitude, but what I really wanted was a life that felt full. Now I have that." That night, after everyone had gone home and Hannah was asleep, Tessa and Isaac sat in the main room of the inn. It was where they always ended up, where everything had started. "You remember that first night?" Tessa asked. "When you showed up in the storm?" "Every detail," Isaac said. "I remember thinking you were beautiful and bossy, and that you made the best soup I had ever tasted. I remember thinking you were arrogant and overdressed, and that you would probably be a terrible guest," Tessa admitted. Isaac laughed. "Fair assessment." "I am glad I was wrong," Tessa said. "About the terrible guest part, anyway." "I am glad you opened your door," Isaac said. "I am glad the storm was bad enough to trap me here. I am glad for every single thing that brought us to this moment." 3 days was not enough, Tessa said, echoing the thought that had haunted her when Isaac had first left. "We got a lifetime instead," Isaac said, pulling her close. "And it is still not enough. I am going to need several more lifetimes with you." "I think that can be arranged," Tessa said. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the fire burn down to embers. Outside, the mountains stood eternal and unchanging, witness to their love and their life together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, new reasons to be grateful. But tonight was just about this moment, this perfect, hard-won happiness they had built together. Tessa thought about the woman she had been a few years ago, standing in this same spot, convinced that solitude was what she needed. She had been wrong. What she needed was this complicated, beautiful, messy life with Isaac and Hannah, and all the people they had brought together. The storm that had brought Isaac to her door had been the best thing that ever happened to her. It had given her everything she had not known she was missing, everything she had not let herself hope for. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac asked. "How lucky I am," Tessa said simply. "We both are," Isaac said, "though I am definitely the luckier one." "We are not having this argument again," Tessa said, laughing. "Fine," Isaac said. "We are equally lucky." "How is that perfect?" Tessa said, and she meant it. Everything was perfect, not in the sense of being flawless, but in the sense of being exactly right. This life, this love, this family they had built, it was more than she had dreamed possible. And it had all started with a storm, a stranger, and 3 days that had never really ended. Instead, those 3 days had stretched into forever, into a love story that continued to unfold with each passing season, each shared meal, each quiet moment by the fire. Years later, when Hannah was old enough to ask how her parents met, Tessa would tell her about the storm. She would explain how sometimes the worst weather brings the best gifts, how being stranded can be the first step toward being found. "Daddy got stuck here," Hannah would ask, delighted by the idea. "He did," Tessa would confirm, "and he never really left, because he loved your soup." Hannah would tease, having heard her father praise her mother's cooking countless times. "Among other things," Isaac would say, winking at Tessa, but that was still in the future. Tonight, in this moment, Isaac and Tessa were just two people sitting by a fire, holding hands, content in the knowledge that they had found something rare and precious. They had found each other, and in doing so, they had found home. The fire burned down to embers, and eventually they made their way to bed, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Because that was the thing about building a life with someone you loved. Every day was a new adventure, every challenge an opportunity to grow stronger together, every moment a gift to be treasured. And 3 days, Tessa thought as she drifted off to sleep in Isaac's arms, would never have been enough. She was grateful beyond measure that she had gotten so much more, that a chance encounter during a storm had turned into the greatest love story of her life. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and gentle this time. The mountains stood watch, ancient and patient, as another chapter in Tessa and Isaac's story came to a close, and a new one prepared to begin. And in the morning, when Hannah woke them with her bright laughter, that new chapter would unfold in all its messy, beautiful glory, just as it should. This was their happily ever after, hard-won and deeply cherished, built on a foundation of respect, partnership, and a love that had been strong enough to bridge two very different worlds. It was everything Tessa had never known she wanted, and everything she would never take for granted. The inn stood solid against the winter night, sheltering not just guests now but a family, a legacy, a love that would endure through all the storms yet to come. And Tessa Anderson Kellerman slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that she was exactly where she belonged, with exactly who she belonged with, living exactly the life she was meant to live.